I had no idea what had happened to me. I knew this
Mm.
thing had happened to me, and I knew that I was different and everything around me was different, my perceptions. Everybody was like glowing light, and that was weird.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Oracle Podcast Spiritual Stories. I'm joined today by someone who's become kind of a friend of mine and somebody I really appreciate and enjoy our communication with. And it's Peter Panagore. He's one of Oracle's practitioners. And today we're going to be chatting about his story and how he came to do what he does today, and also how he can help you. So, Peter, before I start, I'd like to say that it's been a pleasure to have you on the platform. I really enjoy getting to know you. It's so lovely to have our interactions. And I love your story because you're going to share it, but I know you've had two near-death experiences, which makes you somebody that's a wonderful person to talk to for people that have had similar experiences or deep awakenings. But let me rather allow you to introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you actually do with your clients and I guess in general.
Thank you, Waynu. It's been a pleasure to get to know you too. The feeling's mutual. It's been really great to be part of your platform and also watch you in action. I've learned a lot from you, and thank you. So I'm Peter Panagore. I'm a two-time near-death experiencer. I died the first time in 1980 while I was on an expedition in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. In the middle of the winter, I was ice climbing, and I made a mistake, which cascaded into a struggle to survive through the night while we were trying to descend from this mountain. And what happened in brief was that hypothermia overtook me and I died. And when I crossed over, I had a very lengthy experience of a multi-level heaven experience, realm of dimensionality, where I was variously going through a life review where I wasn't judged, but I judged myself, where I became infused with the divine light, love, truth, beauty, joy, awe, understanding that expanded me almost to the point of what I say annihilation, where I felt like any more of this beautiful bliss I would have enfolded back into the infinite ultimate. I had an experience of like being an individual photon, uh, superposition, super connected with all of these other individual photons that were made up the mass mind of the divine. And I was one of them, but I was also outside of it because I wasn't in the infinite itself. I had a reincarnation experience where I got to enter into two of my previous lives. One was an animal, a little tiny animal, and another was a human being a long time ago. I had a different body and a different color and a different language and a different self. I then was worried about my parents, and I was brought into our universe, our physical universe, and I could see our universe, and I could see and experience the origin of our universe in the now, where the divine light was outpouring from this infinite darkness, which was beyond my capacity to understand, even without a brain. And all of this is without a body. I had no brain, I had no eyeballs, I had no fingertips. I was a consciousness, an orb of consciousness, a ball of plasma. All of this is metaphor, but I was in the universe, our universe, and seeing the outpouring of light that wove everything that there was into being, from nebulas to microbes, and everything was made of the divine light. There was nothing that was not made of the divine light. And I saw Earth and all humans on it, and I saw this golden light inside of everyone. And as I saw this light, the divine spoke to me from its own infinite darkness and its universal size and its light. And it said to me inside myself, "You are beloved. I've always been beloved, always will be beloved. And so is everybody else." And because of this love, the divine was showing this unconditional, infinite love that everything was made of, including me. Because everything is made of this infinite love, it enfolds back into itself. It loves itself. And so there's this original goodness inside of not just human beings, but inside of everything that there is. And everything is connected to the divine. And then my parents kind of rose off the surface of the planet Earth, and they separated into mom and dad A and mom and dad B. And I got to see their lives with me surviving and without me dead. And without me dead, it was like a nuclear bomb went off in their lives. My sister was long lost to them, and they were still grieving her absence, and my death would destroy them. And mom and dad A with me with them was better, but not perfect. But I could see their ends, their death. And in their death, after their deaths, they were in the same place, the same paradise that I was. It was an understanding that in the end, no matter what happened in their lives, all would be well, all is well, and all has always been well. And then I asked, can I go home? Do I have to stay here? And the voice said, well, you can go back if you want to. And I said, if I choose to go back, can I come back here? And the voice said, yes. And I said, I choose to live my life. And the voice said, you won't live yours, and threw me out.
I kind of wish that everybody could have a similar experience to that during this lifetime, because I think that having gone what you've gone through, that understanding, that deep understanding that doesn't come from reading a book, it comes from actually having lived it, changes everything. It changes every single thing that you do on this earth, because you have a different understanding of why you're here and what's beyond this life. And that really changes how we handle every single day, because we realize where this fits in the bigger scheme of things. And I think that that's one of the things that you do with your clients, is trying to bring that understanding of who we really are, and use that knowledge to affect the little decisions that we make every single day, right? I usually say it's, for me, what it's done, this, although I haven't had the experience you've had, I've spoken to a lot of people that have had NDEs, and they have similar recounts, and my own understanding of who we are changes my every single day, because we don't sweat the small stuff as much as we did before. It changes the way, from the victim mentality, the creator mentality, and so on. So I would like to maybe go back to before your NDE, just your childhood and your bringing, your teenage years. Was it a pretty conventional life? What was your stance with regards to spirituality before your NDE? And how did that change, like right after the NDE, when you came back? Like, what was the difference there in the way you saw yourself and life?
I was religiously, I was raised Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox simultaneously, mom and dad. And the two churches were a block apart, and the communities did not get along. And so I was kind of going between the two. So I understood that both of them claimed to have the ultimate truth. But how can that be true? When I was 5 years old, I had my first mystical experience where I was pulled out of my body and brought into a greater darkness by an angelic being, consciousness. And in that space, I experienced being immersed in wisdom that wasn't my own, compassion that wasn't my own. And then the divine being told me that I belonged to it and would work for it for the whole of my life. After that, when I was 6, I had another one, and then I had a series of other mystical experiences that were spontaneous. And then when I was in high school, I took a triple hit of LSD, and I was in despair. I was suicidal at the time. And I had another mystical experience of the oneness of being. And all of those things molded me as I went along, but they all seemed to be disparate from each other. And
Mm,
immediately after my NDE, all of them sort of fell in place. Like, oh, this, and this, and this, and that, and the other thing. They all sort of set me up for this particular experience. So they all began to make sense to me.
yeah.
The biggest change was all of those experiences uh, reoriented me as a person. Didn't make me perfect by any means, but it reoriented me slowly, one thing after another. But after my NDE, it was like being blown apart, and I was reformed with a whole new understanding of myself. In all of those previous experiences, or many of them, I was connected to my body with the silver cord and came back down and left to buy it. But during my NDE, that was severed. And so the biggest difference was I recognized that I never had been a human being fully. I'd only occupied a human body, and that my true self, my original higher self, has an eternal nature that became obvious to me when I died. And so when I came back, I had a hard time adjusting. Part of me was always above. I felt like I was
Mm.
living with one foot here and one foot there, and one eye here and one eye there. It was a radical reorientation of my self-understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. So I suppose in one way it's helpful, in another way very disorienting, and when we still have to live down here and follow the rules of down here. So how was that period? Like what happened during that time after your ND as you were adjusting and trying to make sense? And what was your understanding back then versus your understanding now?
Oh, well, I was fortunate when I went to a Catholic high school, and it was near a monastery where they were teaching meditation. So after this one experience that I had when I was in high school, I began meditation. And after my NDE, I found very rapidly that the exterior world was not as I had seen it before. Everything was emitting light, but it was also like this very thin, paper, like onion paper thin darkness, and it wasn't substantial as it was before. The light had more substantiality. And so I dove into a depression for a very long period of time. And I also simultaneously found that the meditation was my only connection to source, was my only connection to a balanced life. It was the only place I could retreat to where I was felt safe and secure. And
You didn't
so,
have friends back then that you could speak to, and people who had
no,
been through similar things? No.
nobody. This was 1980, and I was in Montana, which is in the western Rocky Mountains of the United States. And I had no idea what had happened to me. I knew this
Mm.
thing had happened to me, and I knew that I was different, and everything around me was different. My perceptions, everybody was like glowing light, and that was weird. And eating food was almost disgusting to me because I had to, I on the other side, and energy was just me. I was the energy itself. I didn't need to consume anything. My thinking was my being. My self understanding was my being. But on this side, oh,
Yeah.
it's very different. When I first came back, I was alone, and so I spent 20 years of since 1980 to 2000 not talking about it to anybody.
Wow.
But it so changed my life that I reoriented my expected graduate degree from architecture to mysticism. So I ended up going to a divinity school where they didn't teach mysticism, but in the university level, there were classes on it. And I had a dean of students who allowed me this 3-year independent study because I discovered that I wasn't actually alone. I had no friends, and I was afraid to tell anybody because I didn't
Mm.
want to be c- perceived as crazy.
What about your parents? Did you tell your
Oh no,
parents, family,
I didn't
anyone?
tell. No, no.
Wow, no one.
I ended up telling my wife on the day after we got married, and at which point I know,
Just in
I
case.
just in case, and
Just in
I
case.
told her that that I'm weird. And she had witnessed some strange things and around animals in particular. And I told her that now that I've told you this, if you want to leave me right now, now's the time to do this, to divorce today before we go forward.
Wow.
And I should have told you ahead of time, but I didn't have, I was afraid to tell her. Um, a-
Yeah.
and, and when I finally did tell my parents, which was when my book came out back in, I guess started telling them before the book came out, but no, maybe I did. Maybe I waited. I came out really slowly. Um,
Wow.
because Well, first of all, I didn't have any language to articulate this non-conceptual place. So I spent
Yeah.
my entire life trying to figure out fine language, which is why I was in divinity school studying the mystics, East and West, to see if there was
Yeah.
anybody else like me and how they talked about it. And then finally, when I started coming out, my mom and my dad, even though my mom had her own mystical experiences, nobody believed me. And I was afraid that was going to happen. So that was kind of
Really?
weird. Yeah.
Oh. I mean, I would hope that today, it's 2025, we're a bit more open-minded to these things and more open to these things. So, yeah, I think times have changed a little bit. So,
Mhm.
so you went through a depression, and then what happened? Tell us your transformation from those days after the NDE to your bigger understanding, and then also making it your profession.
These long-term practices and deep studies of other people who I thought were like me gave me a set of tools to help me cope with what I was coping with by myself. I came out publicly in the early 2000s. There was a circumstance which allowed me to come out. People, I could finally trust people to tell them. And then in 2015, I died again of a heart attack. It's a congenital thing in my family. It's killed a bunch of people and should have killed me. 3% of people who have this kind of heart attack survive. And I came back. All of my depression went away. It's just like overnight gone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was transformation because I chose to come back again. I've been hoping to die my entire life. Even as I was diving into my interior practice and silence and prana and chi and all these things, I was praying every day to take me today, take me today. Is today the day? Can I go today? And then I had the chance to go, and I had told my wife, "Look, any first chance I get, I'm out of here. I love you and the kids and everything, but I'm out of here." And then I had this heart attack, and I could see my granddaughter who'd just been born with me and without me. I got to see her parallel life, and I realized that she actually needed me here for her well-being. And so I chose to come back, and after that happened, I stopped pining for death. But the funny thing is, the longing that I had for the divine, it's a zillion septillion times a billion times better on the other side. And this place is pretty crude. And so it wasn't so
Yeah.
much that this place was bad as that place was really good. And so I had this longing like a bereft, like unconsummated love. Oh, I love you, but I can never be with you kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so when I died again, and I had this opportunity to go to my beloved, my lover, and because I think of the divine as my beloved, um,
Yeah.
I chose to stick around here, and I I realized that my time is going to come. I mean, I knew it all the way
Mm.
along that I was going to die, but I've got at the max 20 years left, so that's pretty good. I can maybe 30,
Yeah.
but I can take it.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny because I also kind of have the same feeling towards death. I'm not scared of it at all. I'm looking forward to it when it happens. It kind of does beg the question a little bit. I mean, if it is so good, and I wholeheartedly believe that it is that good, and I've heard it from so many people. I mean, is it worth it then to stay here? I mean, it's like a weird question, but I mean, and if we know that everyone, no matter what, is going to be okay, even the people that stay behind and suffer. I mean, as I say this, I think of my children, and I guess I could never do that to them. But thought about another way, if it's so good, if everybody will be fine eventually, what's the point?
Well, for me, it was two things. One, during my first NDE, I was specifically told that I didn't create myself, not just my human body, but my soul self was an emanation of the divine, a created emanation of the divine, and therefore I couldn't take my own life because I didn't belong to me. That's one thing. And the second thing is that I spent a lot of my career as a church pastor. I was hiding inside a liberal progressive denomination in the United States because it afforded me the opportunity to pursue my spiritual life without people questioning. And
Mm,
I faced a lot of suicide in my life, in my professional life, all sorts of people. And what I saw from the people who took their own lives was devastation of everybody who loved them, everybody, all the time, every single time, with a singular type of exception. And that singular exception were the very terminally ill, who ended up taking their lives so that they wouldn't suffer as much at the end. And then in
yeah,
those circumstances, I saw supportive families, but the devastation, the wounds that suicide caused, because just because I know my origin, who I am, where I'm from, where I'm going, doesn't mean everybody else does. Most people
yeah,
don't know it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so grief and guilt. I could have done something. Why didn't I hear better? Why did they
Mm.
show me any signs? All that kind of stuff. People have self recrimination, and it's destructive. But also, the last thing is that sometimes in my life experience, people who have taken their own lives come back to people who love them, and they tell them it's okay. I'm okay.
Mm. I actually have heard that through some documentaries. But so since you have experienced that and know what is like on the other side, has it become then your life purpose to share this with other people to help them with their, anxiety or fear about death and and if it's not that, like, what is your life mission?
Well, part of it is what you just said. When I was the local, I became the guy to the community guy to go to when you were dying. So
Okay.
I wasn't dealing with just parishioners. I was dealing with lots of people who wanted me to help them make the transition. And I was not out of the closet at that point. They didn't know this about me, but I was
Oh.
still behaving in a way that was kind of like I figured I was a reverse midwife. I was helping
Wow.
people cross over rather than helping people come in. But all the way along, since early childhood, since I was 5, and then specifically after my first NDE, I had a commission, a calling, a purpose, a mission, to help people, let people know that love awaits them, that
Mm.
unconditional love awaits them, and that it can be experienced here, and it doesn't eliminate, suffering, but what it does do is it gives courage and strength while we're here, kind of brings a bubble of heaven to a person, a bubble of love, so that they can persevere while they're alive. And even when I wasn't open about it, that was the job I was doing. And all of the permutations of my career from even when I was in grad school, I was a gardener working for this all women's company, installing perennial and annual flower beds and working in corporations, putting in trees. It was my mission then. It was my mission when I was a minister. It was a mission when I was on television. It was a mission on radio. It's a mission in what I'm doing now. So I think that no matter what I end up doing, should my career change, it's always got this one thing, and this one thing is to try to give people hope, hope for now and later.
Yeah, lovely. Could you maybe share a story from somebody that you've helped and how it changed them? What happened? How were you able to help them?
Oh, sure. I can tell you a dramatic story. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I live in a harbor town, and the hospital is across the harbor. And I got a phone call from one of my deacons who was a nurse, and she said, "Peter, can you get over here?" I had a rowboat, so I hopped in my rowboat and I rowed across the harbor and I tied up at the hospital and I walk it into the waiting room and there's probably 25 people. It's a small town. Lots of people are related to each other. I knew half the people in the room. And it turns out that a husband, a dad, a brother, he had hepatitis C and was actively dying. I didn't really know him. I knew the daughter because she went to school with my daughter, and I kinda knew some of the people a little bit, and as I was talking to them about it, they were filling me in the blank. The door opened to the visitor room, and the nurse poked her head in and said, Peter, Peter, come here. Can I borrow him for a minute?" And so I'm like, I walk out and I'm like, "What?" I'm talking to these people, and she said, "I know we need you. It's a Sunday. We're shorthanded. Can you put this gown on and these gloves and this mask and this hat?" So they gown me up and I'm all dressed up now. And she takes me into one of the rooms and there he is. And he's probably, I don't know, maybe 48 or 49. And he's bleeding out everywhere. Like all of his orifices, he's bleeding and he's scared out of his mind.
Oh, sure.
And he's dying right there. And
Mm.
so, and I know his reputation. He's what locals might call a good-hearted pirate. This is kinda on the edges of the outlaw life, but, not a bad guy, a good guy, but
Yeah.
still did things that he was scared because he had been born a Baptist and had this. So, I got into the bed behind him. They wanted me to hold him so that they could treat him, whatever they were gonna do. So, I snuck into the bed behind him, and he's in a gown, and he's kinda embarrassed, but he's crying, and he's scared, and the doctors are trying to work on him, and so I grab him around, and I say, "What's wrong?" whisper in his ear, "What's wrong?" He said, I'm petrified. I know I'm dying, and the things I've done." And so I just started whispering in his ear,
Mm,
"God loves you. The light is going to accept you. You don't have to worry about this. Turn your heart to the light." And it
mm,
just was like this, this
like a channeling.
flow of words. And as I spoke to him, it was like the light went from me into him, and he calmed down and heard me deep in the soul of his heart. And then he died in my arms, peacefully
Mm,
died. And so there's this thing that can happen. I'm not in charge of it, but while I'm in counseling sessions, I listen very deeply to what people are saying, and I have this. People call it empathy, but it's sort of like mind reading. But I can't see their thoughts, but I see I feel, experience their emotions, and with that comes some understanding of the person, and also sometimes ideas pop into my head that I then say that apply directly to the person. And so there's this. I have skills with therapy because I was a pastoral counselor for decades, and I have this other aspect of me that sees more deeply into a person. And I think that fundamentally, the image that I see of every single person I meet is the radiance of light and love that is at the core of their original goodness. And by allowing myself to be in that space, allows me to be in their space with them, and vice versa.
yeah, yeah. No, beautiful. I understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And I don't have the same skills you do, but I completely understand how getting somebody, being able to feel into them can just be healing in itself for the other person too, as they understand themselves because of your understanding, right? And so what a beautiful story, by the way, and how what a an intense moment to live through, to be a part of in somebody's life. I have to say, one of the things that keeps coming back to me, and not right now in my life, but as I get older, is I would be quite interested in being there for somebody's last breath and giving them comfort, because it's one of the biggest moments of our lives, right? There's a couple of key moments, and this is a massive one, and it's one that's so little understood. It's so feared. It's so lonely, it's so painful, it's a difficult one. So to be able to help somebody through that process must be pretty special. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. We're gonna wrap it up, but what would you say is the best client for you? Like the person that would get the most out of a session with you. And I know you've alluded to it through everything you've said, but I think there's many people that you can help, but there's some people that would like would be perfect, to have a session with you. Who would that be?
Somebody who's had a major transformative awakening experience that's shattered their life to some extent, where they no longer have the same sense of self they had before. It's a very confusing thing that can
Mm.
happen. A psychological, emotional relationship changes in a person. So, near-death experiencers, spiritually transformed people who have woken up one day from their experience and realized that they are not the person they were before, and they don't understand who they are anymore. And I have clients that I've been working with for years at a time, because as a result of these major mystical experiences, the transformation is initial, but then there's ongoing, because it's the gift that keeps on giving. And so there's continual growth and change and disorientation. The disorientation of major mystical experiences, of major transformations, spiritual transformations, um, well, it's helpful to have a guide. And I didn't have a guide, but I had all of these mystics who helped guide me through their writings and my interior practice. So people
Mm.
who are sort of like me, maybe not to the extreme that I am.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another thing I have to say about you, you kind of mentioned it there. You are an excellent listener. I know, because when we talk, often you make notes, you actively listen, And I think that that's a wonderful skill, because then you can understand the person really well. You're very present when you're with somebody. So yeah, Peter, really great to hear your story. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any parting thoughts that you'd like people to think about or know about you?
Trust the light inside yourself and talk to other people about it, because I spent most of my life in my closet, my near-death experience closet, and it twisted me around. I was depressed. If I had had a community of people that I could speak to about it, I would have gotten over my depression long before. And so if you're able to, don't keep it to yourself. Find somebody to talk to, a friend, a counselor, but not just anybody. Somebody who understands what you're trying to talk about, or somebody who loves you deeply enough, even if they don't understand it, they love you anyway. So that's one part. And the second thing is, if you can find a way to begin a meditation life, do it. It
Yeah,
pays dividends for the rest of your life.
absolutely. Okay, well, that was wonderful, Peter. I've enjoyed, as always, chatting with you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for doing what you do and helping so many people. And yeah, I guess we'll be chatting with you soon again.
I hope so, Wenu. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you.